want this demonstration to be just as interactive as possible, right? So I want to get your guys' feedback throughout the demonstration, you know, see if this is something that resonates with your organization, if this is how you envision the tool working for you guys. So please feel free to ask any questions, give any feedback or input that you may have throughout the demonstration.
Okay.
So for the agenda for the demo, I was just going to go through the different tabs here at the right-hand side. The plans tab. So this is how you set up those comp plans, those rules. If they sell this new business versus old business, how they're going to get paid on. And then we're going to go into the data side. So bringing data in, I'll show you. I know you mentioned, Ian, that it's important for you to see how to get data into the system. So I'll definitely show an example of that. Get data into the system, and then how do you filter that data and then map it to what will be the comp plan.
Yep. Let me just jump in real quick and kind of bring Sean up to speed on something. So what I talked to them about was pretty basic right now, 10% flat commission, 90% of the time, if not more, based on the sale, but timing-wise when the cash comes in the door. It would be helpful for us to know that we have flexibility to flag what types of sale it is. Is it a new build? Is it renovation? What brand is it? Is it multi-unit housing? Is it military? Is it owner group, like we talked about yesterday from Elisa? So that we can structure different comp plans. We don't just have to have a single, it's flat 10% and then adjust. You can set up the rules, I think is what Alex is saying.
Yeah.
Set up rules here that such that when we import that data and it says this is hospitality, Hyatt, new construction, that goes to that rule and then that percentage is paid out to whoever.
Very nice. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll show the different ways that you guys can do that. And then, as I was mentioning to Ian as well, is that he mentioned that you guys pay upon the client base. So I'll show you how you can actually calculate commissions upon the sale happening, but hold that commission and then release that once the invoice has been paid or the client has paid. So I'll show you all that in the data side. Then we're going to go into what actually calculating looks like, how running those calculations, looking at that those results, right? Having a payroll file that you make sure you're paying your reps correctly. Finally, the last thing will be the dashboard. This is maybe, Sean, might be something more relevant for you. It's just the visibility that your sales reps will be able to have regarding their compensation plan, so they can understand how they're getting paid. Especially once those comp plans, those structures get more complicated, they'll be able to see, you know, where they stand towards each of their payouts. Does that sound like a good agenda for the two of you?
Yeah. Yep.
Great. So jumping straight in, we're first going to look into the plans tab. So this is kind of the different structures that you might have. So if I know right now you just have one structure, but if later on you want to pay your sales reps differently than your general contractors versus other type of payees, you can, or maybe Sean has a sales director plan that is specifically for management or sales director versus the end user sales rep. So you be able to have multiple different comp plans, each with their own specific structures, right? And then going in SimplyComp is our newest, and this was designed as a do-it-yourself type of tool. So you'll notice that throughout the application there is this help button that it will actually walk you through all the different steps that you need to complete to create this comp plan. So first, I'm going to name my plan. So sales rep plan, account executive, however you call them. The next step will be assign users to this plan. So these are all my sales reps that are part of this account executive plan. And if I need to add a new user, it's as easy as checking a box or just adding their basic information.
Can the individuals be in multiple plans?
So the individual cannot be in multiple plans. You assign an individual to a plan, but if, for instance, for an example here, Brett is part of the account executive plan, but maybe Brett has a different commission structure, like not only maybe instead of 10% he gets paid 5%, but then he also has a bonus at the end of the quarter. You still can create user-specific rules. So here in the next to Brett's name, you see this yellow dot. So you can create the user-specific rule that's specifically for Brett, but he's still part of this sales rep plan.
So we've got, just as an example, a rep who would be, in this instance, part of the account executive group and would get just a flat 10% on his sales. But then he also gets kind of a rider of an additional 1% on all sales of a certain type of job. So that would be in and of it. So that would be an additional rule within here, or you would have to have a separate group.
No, this will be an additional rule. So, once you have your users, so the bottom here, you add what is a payment rules. So for the account executive itself, for the account executive plan, the sales rep plan, you might just have that one rule that says sales happen, pay 10%. But if I go to Brett specifically, because he has that one extra plan, so I also have a new business or that other kicker that it says if the sale type is X, then pay this other percentage. So you can't have.
Okay, that's where we would put in 10% on all sales plus 1% of only Marriott type sales.
Exactly. So Brett will have this extra payment rule that will tell, if the sale is X, then you pay this other percentage. So that's user specific rule. But he's still part of the account executive or sales rep plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so and that's a great segue for my next the next section will be, if you want to create some type of goals or quotas for your sales team so they can be motivated, even if you don't pay depending on their quota attainment, but maybe you just want them to have that goal that they can work for it, right? So you can create those different quotas if they have a monthly quota, quarterly, annually, however that is. The next section will be that payment rule. So that payment rule is a logic, and this is kind of the core of the plans tab. Is the logic that tells me, okay, if they sell X, then you pay X amount or X percentage. So now it's a little background on exactly. We have been in the compensation space for more than 13 years. So we have seen thousands of different comp plans. So what we have done with SimplyComp is that we have created different payment templates with the most common ways that organizations pay commissions. So I know Ian mentioned that you guys want to get creative later on to have different payment structures for different groups or for different products, for different types of sales. You can come in here into this payment templates and see, okay, so what will be the best way for me to pay commissions for this one goal. Maybe I want to do a tier structure that if they sell renovation versus a new business, if they get sale from $0 to $100,000 of that type of sale, then they get paid only 5%. But if they pay they sell $100,000 plus, they get paid that 10%. So you can get creative with that. Or even if you want to pay on amount of projects, not specifically a revenue KPI, but maybe like if they have from 0 to, if they have more than 10 projects at once, if they sell more than 10 projects at in 1 month, then pay them an extra $100. So you can get creative on the way that you compensate your reps, so they can, bring in that extra deal, bring in that extra project, and they understand how they're going to get paid for each of those.
Yeah, and again, I just want to make sure it's clear. We would probably be a little less interested in the total value of their sales or the quantity of their sales. We're probably more interested in the type of sale it is, who the end customer is, the brand that it is, the type of job that it is. So anywhere where I see these tiers where you've got a percentage or a dollar or a count or some sort of numerical value,
yeah,
I could plug in Marriott jobs get this percent, Hyatt jobs get, a different percent, because we're trying to grow Hyatt right now,
right,
or whatever it is. We can make it based on that particular criteria. It's not a value-based criteria.
Yeah.
It can be qualitative rather than quantitative.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that scenario, I would just use this flat rate rule, and then have, okay, so for the Marriott type of sale, then pay 15%, and then create a new one that says for the Hyatt type of sale, pay 10%. So that way, I'm just gonna save that. So that way, your payment rules will have clearly how much they're gonna get paid for each of their different components.
And again, that gets flagged based on the data that's input into People's Choice.
Exactly.
That gets imported into SimplyComp. It'll be flagged as a Hyatt job.
Yes, exactly. So as long as we have in the data that each transaction was either Hyatt versus Marriott, or new business versus renovation, or whatever, so if we have something in the data that will tell us that difference, then it will flag, tell SimplyComp, okay, so now you have to pay this rule.
Is there a number of criteria that you can have? So maybe, and I mean, this is Sean's world, right? But maybe he wants Marriott renovations to be a different percentage than Marriott new builds, which is going to be different than Hyatt's, and so it's almost like a permutation of, you start with the bigger umbrella of it's a brand, and then what type of a job, and is it an owner group or a GC, such that it could go filter down. Is there a certain number of, is there a limit to the criteria that you could set for each one of those?
Yeah, so no. So the answer is no. You can have as many payment rules as you want. So you can have a payment rule that says Hyatt new business or Hyatt renovation.
Just
so
have to set a rule for all that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you can have as many rules as you want. But yeah. So there's no really a limit of how many rules you put in the system in one plan.
Okay.
The last section now created that payment rule. The last section I have within the application will be this plan terms and conditions. So this allows the sales reps, the salespeople, even someone like Sean, the sales director, to come in here, look at these plans, and understand exactly what they're looking at. So there has the definitions and conditions, the whatever that legality is. So when your sales reps or your sales leaders come in here, they know exactly what they're looking at, and there's no gray area. So it's like that one single source of truth.
Okay.
Are there any questions before we move into the data side? So that's where we import the data, filter the data, and then map it to this plan.
I don't think so yet. Nope.
Okay.
No, go on.
If something comes up, please let me know. I'm happy to go back. Okay, so now we're moving into the data side. So this is kind of, Ian, to answer your question, this is where we look at that data that's coming from People's Choice and then tell SimplyComp, okay, now with this data, pay these plans and pay these rules. So, where I'm going to focus on in the data tab is going to be 3 different tabs. So I'm going to look at the lookup tables, my compensable events, and my compensable reports. So I'm going to first show the lookup tables just so I can show you guys how easy it is to bring data into the system. So the lookup tables, just to give you a good visual, this is where I'm telling SimplyComp, you know how I told you we can calculate up on the sale happening, but we are not releasing the commissions until the payment has been received. So this is an example of where we will tell SimplyComp, okay, it's time for you to release these payments. In this case, I'm telling, okay, so this is the name of the customer, this is the order ID, and the percentage to release. So even at some point you want to maybe release payments 50% upon the sale, but then 50% after the payment has been released, or do a prorated release rate. So if the customer only pays 75% of their invoice, and then you only pay 75% of that commission. So it's really up to you of how much.
That has to be manually updated though each time.
So the way that you'll be able to do something like that, and that's the same way that you bring data in, you'll just have to upload, you know, tell SimplyComp, okay, it's time for you to release that. So yeah, so it'll take a minute or 2 for you to tell SimplyComp that. It's just we just have to flag the system to let them know that it's time to release this payment.
Yeah, I guess, but though that's on each individual job, so I'd have to go through and update the percentage, the total cumulative percentage to release on that particular job. So if I did 75% last month, and now it should be 95%, I have to go through and plug in 95 for all of those jobs after I do the calculation of completion, basically?
No, so you'll still be able to have that information of how much pending it has been done. So in here in this release report, so I have the amount and I have the payment, and it's also going to tell me how much it has been released at this point and how much is still remaining. So you don't really have to do that pre-calculation of, oh, okay, so this is how much is still remaining for the payment. So this is how much is I only going to pay this. So you'll still have
I have to do the calculation to tell what's the new total to release, though.
Well, not really, because we are going to be calculating upon the sale. So the sale is going to say, let's say, the commission that they earn is $1,000. So for that one sale, so we're going to tell SimplyComp, okay, hold those $1,000. So when the only maintenance that you'll have to do is to do this, to update this file that says, okay, so for that $1,000 for this sale, for this order ID, release 50% of that $1,000, or only release 75% of that $1,000 of commission. So you don't really have to calculate the commission or the commission earned or the ending balance. You only have to tell it how much of that commission earned.
Can you change more than one at a time? Like, can you highlight like 20 of them and make them all 100%?
Yeah, so how you can do that, and you can upload, and that's what I was going to go to show you how you get data into the system. how you'll be able to do that is, so I'm just going to upload a file. So I'm going to say SimplyComp release, sample release. So I'm going to add new, and I'm going to add a new mapping. So you won't have to do this. So once you have the mapping, you just have to update the file. But in this case, I'm just creating and showing you a new mapping. So how the mapping works is that you're telling it what type of columns you want to include in the mapping. So maybe I do need order ID. I don't need the date. I don't need the amount. I don't need the opportunity name. I'll need only the percentage to release, and then I can tell it new column, percent to release. Release. I want the order ID, so I can tell SimplyComp what order or what commission calculated I need to release. So if you wanna, if you in your file you have all 100% or all 50%, this is gonna copy all that.
It's no different than what we're doing now. We have to go through and calculate how much they earned for the month because of the cash that came in the door. I think what she's just saying is that we just take that into a file, and then there's a unique ID that matches whatever data is already in SimplyComp.
Right.
Okay, now here's the new unique ID, order number, job number, whatever it is. Here's the new percentage of that commission that needs to be released, and then it'll calculate it and go forth.
Exactly.
But I still have to do all the manual calculation in the background.
Yeah, because what we are doing, we're calculating upon the sale happening. So in this one sale, this person earned $1,000 on commission, but we're telling SimplyComp, okay, hold that commission until I tell you when to release that. So this is what we are doing here is I'm just telling SimplyComp, okay, it's time for you to release this order, the commission you calculated for this order, and then you tell it either 50%, 100%, whatever it is in the file, and then you upload that file into the system. And this is kind of also how you get data into the system. So you upload a CSV file, and the beauty about SimplyComp is that you don't have to match the file to match SimplyComp. You can map SimplyComp to the file. So you tell it, okay, I want this field, I want this column, I want this column, I don't want this column, I want this column. And then you get to it automatically. It's going to take the column name of the file, but you can edit and say, you know, amount paid or whatever it is. So that's the beauty about SimplyComp is that you are able to map SimplyComp to the file that you are uploading versus the other way around.
Okay.
Are there any questions? I know this was a lot of information, and I'm sure it looks very different to what you guys are doing right now. I just wanted to, you know, make sure it's clear of how you get data into the system and how kind of that mapping of the data works.
Have you had experience with that mapping out of people's choice?
Not in SimplyComp currently, as of now. But if you can download a file from people's choice, then you're able to map it. So it doesn't really add any extra complexity or any extra steps from the data source.
Okay.
The next sub-tab I was going to show will be this compensable events. This is kind of where that raw data comes from the source system. So you upload the data, map the data to the file, SimplyComp to the file that you're uploading, you know, telling it, okay, give me the order, the sales rep name, type of sale, was it the new versus renovation, and then product type or the account name, customer name, the Hyatt versus Marriott, what type of sale is it? So you'll give us all that information. So once we have all that raw data, the data that comes in from your source system, then we go into what is the compensable report. And this is kind of where we map that data to the plan. So we can filter the data and say only look at new business, from that file, or only look at renovations. And then I'm gonna say, and with that I'm gonna map this file, this data to the compensation plan. So with this file, pay that new business rule, so that 10% of new business. But then you can add as many mappings. Also with this file, pay that Marriott or Hyatt payment rule as well.
Sorry, let me restate what I think you're saying here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
We need to input a rep, and with that rep, create some sort of a commission rule that particular rep gets this percentage on these types of sales, et cetera. We can create as many of those as we want.
Exactly.
Then we have to export the data out of people's choice, do our own little internal calculations as far as how much of that particular sale to release. And then we upload that into Simply, sorry, I forgot the name of it, SimplyComp. I was just pick the choice. Then we import that into SimplyComp. That generates some level of a database looking thing. Then we have to filter that and say, okay, based on these criteria that we set up as far as payment rules, so rep number 1 gets 10% on Marriott jobs, so I have to take this data, filter for that rep, Marriott, and new, and then take that result and map that against that rule to do the calculation?
So you added an extra step. So you don't have to do any calculations before you bring data in. So you download the file, People's Choice file, you upload it, and then just map SimplyComp, and you tell in SimplyComp, okay, which fields you want it to look at. So once you upload that file, that data, then you come here and map that data to the payment rules. So in this file, let's say in this file it tells me sales rep name, customer name, Hyatt versus Marriott, and then type of sale, what's the new versus renovation. So then I'll go into the mapping, and then I'm telling SimplyComp, okay, look at this data and pay out these rules. So I'm gonna look at, and I can add as many many mappings of rules as I want. So I'm gonna.
I guess that's the piece I'm missing here, Alex. Sorry, is your other screen, the one that's behind this. Close that real quick for me, will you?
Yeah.
That. So this is kind of the output of everything that we imported, right?
Yeah, so this is the data that you imported, and then this is where we tell SimplyComp, okay, pay these rules with this data.
Yeah, but do I have to, let's just say I have 20 different commission rules. Mm-hmm. Do I have to manipulate this 20 different times in order to do the calculation for, a rep? No?
So if you have 20 different rules if you have 20 different rules for all your comp plans, yeah, you'll have all the 20 different mappings here, but you don't have to manipulate the data or do any type of data validation before. So you just, this is the way that you're telling SimplyComp, okay, take this data and pay these rules. Because then you might have another data set that pays another set of rules.
Okay, so I take that data set and I could say apply that to all 20 of my rules, and then it'll do its calculation.
Yes, and then once you have that mapping, once you have told SimplyComp, okay, pay these rules, and then you tell it also calculate these commissions, but hold those commissions. Don't pay them yet. You're telling it that, or you can say, pay those monthly, annually, quarterly, however it is. So this is where you're telling SimplyComp, okay, calculate commissions for each of these transactions. And that's where we're mapping the data to the plan. Is that resonating?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, and it is worth also mentioning. I know sometimes it's tough trying to wrap your head around a whole new system. During implementation, you can utilize implementation hours for training. So I know this might be completely different to what you're doing right now. But the beauty about SimplyComp is that we'll give you a bucket of implementation hours, and you can utilize those hours however is best for you. So you can say, let the plans tab seems pretty straightforward to me, so I'll do that. I'll create those payment rules myself, but I do need help doing the mapping. You can have our team do the mapping for you, or I also want to utilize those hours for training or testing. You can do that as well.
Okay.
So once we have told SimplyComp, okay, so
Hey, Alex?
Yeah.
Alex, I'm sorry, just maybe a dumb question, but let's just assume you're back on that data field there, and let's say you've got 100 lines of data, okay? You set up your 20 mapping. Is there any flag where you might have missed one for some reason, like one did not meet any of the 20 criteria? Like, would you know that?
There is no flag like that. What it would do, if for an example, if you have told SimplyComp, okay, I want to know what the account executive is, I want to know the account name, but if something is in blank, so maybe this transaction doesn't have account name, or it doesn't have an account executive or sales rep attached to it, then it might give you an error. So it was said line 23 wasn't able to upload because didn't have an account executive name or a customer name. So it will error you when you try to upload the data. But once you're mapping, we have lots of customers that there are some transactions that they don't necessarily pay anyone. So it won't really tell you, okay, this transaction doesn't apply. But yeah, so to answer your question, there's no really flags that you can add to it. If there's some type of error in your data, it will notify you that.
Okay.
So now, once I have told SimplyComp, okay, so this is all, take this data and pay all these payment rules, then I can go ahead and go into actual calculations. And it's as easy to calculate to click the button and tell, okay, it's time for you to calculate this commission. And it usually takes me like a minute or two to actually run this calculations, depending on how many rules you have. And right now what it's doing is taking all that data, running it through the mapping, the payment rules, etc. And then it's just gonna spit out a result. And you can calculate as often as you want. So you can calculate every day, you can calculate twice a day, every week, whatever it is. So there you go, calculation success. And then I go in, and the first thing I'm going to be able to see is that payroll file. So this is where this is what I will download and tell payroll. Okay, so pay Alan Martinez this amount for the month of February. I can go into more detail and I can see the information about how much Alan Martinez earned in commission for each rule. So this is how much he earned for new business. This is how much he earned from renovation. This is how much he earned for the Hyatt rule versus that Marriott payment rule.
Sorry, let me. This isn't for you guys. I'm just thinking more a benefit for us. I mean, to say all the brands are the same rule, but this reporting could easily tell us which reps are selling into which brands and which types and everything else. I mean, that's pretty good data to have. I agree. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely, and then you can go even deeper than that and see, okay, these are all the line item transactions that Alan got paid on for this rule. So that Alan got paid this amount, this was his rate, this is commission rate, this was the payment that he earned, and this is how much it has been released. So you can still even have that visibility of how much they earn versus how much it has been released so far, in the held amount as well. So if I earn $1,000 for that one sale, staying with our example, but I only 50% was released, I'll only see that my payment was $500, and I'll have my whole balance on the other $500. So you'll have that information, and then all the payments, all my transaction information, each of the deals that I have sold, how much commission I earned, and how much commission I actually got paid for each of them.
Could we set up rules such that, in this example, Alex, sorry, not you, Alan Martinez, that Alan could actually get into the system to see his information, but only his information? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So Sean doesn't get calls, I don't get calls about why didn't I earn this, or how did you come up with this numbers? They can go in and look at it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great value prop for SimplyComp as well. So, which also is a great segue for our next tab. So each individual that we're calculating, paying them, they'll have their own dashboard. So as Alan Martinez, I'm able to come in, log into SimplyComp myself, and see, okay, so this is how much I have earned of commissions this year so far. This is how much I've earned this month. And then here on the right-hand side, I'll have it broken down by rules. So this is how much I earn for new business. This is how much I earn by renewals, renovations versus Hyatt versus Marriott. So they'll have that broken down themselves. And then in the left-hand side, they can go to see their own plan, again, in comparison to the administrator, that I was able to see all my users. As Alan, I'm only able to see my own information, my own payment rules, and I won't have access to this plus button just because I'm an end user. So I'm only able to see my information, but then I also have my results, my plan information as well. So as Alan, I can come in here and look at my payments.
Sorry, what other demographic isn't the right word? So it's not necessarily rule-based, but what might be interesting, if you've got a dashboard like this, and this looks like a pretty good kind of data repository and reporting tool, you know, could we import into SimplyComp, say, for example, the state in which the job was shipped or the state that the customer resides in, and that could be a part of their dashboard? It doesn't have anything to do with the calculation itself, but for us, it's interesting to understand kind of where they feel their regions are and kind of where they're going. Is that part of it or no?
So if you import that data with your data file, and then you're telling SimplyComp, even if you don't need it to calculate, I'm trying to think. So you can import as much data as you want into SimplyComp. So the end user, so as Alan, I also have access to all these 4 different tabs, but I'm only going to be able to see my information. I won't be able to see other people's information. So I can come in my plans, look at my own plans. I can come in my data, look at the raw data, the compensable events. So if you import that information into, or like that field into SimplyComp, maybe you have another column that says location, or whatever, or here we have region. So whatever that data you want them to see, they can come into their data tab and have that information themselves. So this is Alan Martinez. This is all the transactions.
Can you do reporting on that within the system, or at least export that data? Well, you don't need to export it. That's what you imported, so it doesn't make any sense.
Or can you graphical represent the region graphically?
So in the dashboard, this graphs, these are all out-of-the-box reports, so there's really no other or dashboards or graphs that you can create within SimplyComp. You could download your results or your payouts, your earnings, the information that SimplyComp has calculated, and you'll have that data in here, but SimplyComp is not really a reporting tool. It's mostly just a compensation variable comp tool.
No, it was just a question if it was all right there, but I mean, we can always,
yeah.
Get it out on
like,
or whatever. Okay.
Guys, this is Spencer, but like Alex was saying, I mean, they could go to that data, and about how many sales would they be looking at per month within different states, do you think?
No, I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, no clue. Right now, I'm pulling the data, manipulating it, and doing it myself, but I just thought, if the data's already there, it might be easy to graphically represent it through SimplyComp.
Sure.
But it's not part of the compensation plan. So it's outside this scope.
Oh, definitely. But like Alex was saying, they could go into that data and just at least sort it by that, and that would give them some idea of what's going on. I mean, they can get some visual just seeing those rows of columns, which they're not privy to at this time. So there's that benefit. But yes, there's no graphical representation.
Okay. All right.
I know we have 10 minutes left. The last thing I wanted to point out, as I mentioned, SimplyComp is a type of do-it-yourself, easy-to-use type of tool. So if you have any questions regarding, how do you create that plan? How do you import that data? How do you map those? How do you do that mapping? You can come in here and utilize the help guide, and they will actually, SimplyComp will walk you through step by step. What do you need to complete to complete that task? So you'll have that help guide available for you, but we also take customer support and customer success very seriously. It's actually one of our core values. So you also have this chat window that you can actually chat live with one of our customer support representatives. So if you're having trouble, mapping the data or uploading the file, you can just chat with our customer support, and they'll walk you through. So you have all those resources available for you as well.
Excuse me. This is web-based, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then how long or how much? Oh gosh, how do I ask this question right? How much data are you storing? So let's just say we're 10 years down the road. Is all 10 years of information in here?
Yeah, well, yes. So yes. So if you have utilized SimplyComp for multiple years, you'll have all that historical information. You can even import, import historical data if you want. Usually we just recommend, so you don't spend too much time on that, and maybe utilize those implementation hours in a better resourceful way. But you can even, if you say like, actually I also want to have 2017 information in SimplyComp, you can do that as well. And this is all stored in our cloud, and you can even go back in previous years, look at those results from.
I'm thinking historical data to help set quotas. I mean, if you're to a point where you think you'll be setting quotas for these folks.
There's a goal for next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Can you, Alex, real quick, before we lose our time here, if there were a stated quota, does that show up anywhere in that graph?
Yeah. So like here at the bottom, you have their goals. So maybe I have a new business or a renovation goal, or even a customer, like a Marriott goal. Like I want a quota, if you need to bring in this amount of business for this one type of sale. You can set those up, and they'll have that visibility of how they stand towards their goals. So I'm at 18% for my new business goal, but maybe I'm 75% for that Marriott or Hyatt goal. So you'll be able to set those up. Again, in the plan design, there's a whole quota section as well, so you can set those up there, and they'll have their visibility as where they stand towards those goals.
Okay.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
What else?
So I know there's 5 minutes left, so I wanted to make sure to give some time to Spencer to get your feedback, and maybe we can set up next steps or see what your timeline looks like.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Ian and Sean, I'd love to hear some additional feedback or thoughts, and I'm happy to also walk through next steps in this process. Ian, we touched on price a little bit the other day, and any questions you might have around like implementation time frame with this type of project.
So I think this is interesting enough, just as I've sat through a demo for an hour now. I've never utilized a compensation, software program like this before.
Mm-hmm.
Sean's probably seen some in his sales experience, but I think it's something worthwhile for us to discuss internally, and also to kind of talk to our boss about it and see if it's something that we want to move forward with. In my personal opinion, if we decided to move forward with this, it would probably be something like, go live January 1. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do with the sales force right now, and Sean's, working with them and, thinking about how we structure things in the coming year. Doesn't make a lot of sense to kind of rush through this for the remainder of 2018, but rather give us enough time to set things up as we need to, get the structure set and in place and all the rules and et cetera, maybe do some testing, and then kind of go live January is kind of my thought process. But again, we need to talk about it internally enough. And like I told you, Spencer, it's on that cusp of cost where it's enough to think about and make sure we can extract enough value out of it to make it worthwhile. It's not too expensive, but it's not so cheap it's just like a no-brainer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At
totally.
least for a company our size.
Yeah, and that being the case, I know for a lot of companies, the majority of commissions being paid out in the fourth quarter back into the year is kind of a big reason they want to get these tools in place before then, in which case with this tool, I mean, the implementation time is typically 1 to 3 weeks total. So you're still kind of in that time frame. And then a lot of companies kicking off the new year with a tool like this in place already and having it close to mastered is kind of a big priority. But also what makes the most sense for your business is going to be different. And we want to, find that place right there. I definitely can say with the most confidence that price, like we were talking about, you have a general range and we're open to figuring out what's going to work here. This is really SimplyComp's first year being on the market, and it's seen a lot of success. But that being the case, we're also having a huge push to evangelize this product, get it out there, which gives me, as the seller, the most flexibility to help you guys with that budget come Jan 1. I don't know what that's going to look like because we'll be restructured in terms of price and everything at that point. But I do know right now that's just the circumstances around the price. But I think it totally makes sense to have that internal conversation. And I'm, of course, here, and I'm ready to figure out how we can make this happen for MPL as soon as you guys are.
Yeah, and adding to that, what Spencer just mentioned, what I will recommend regarding the implementation side of things is that you do want to have a few months or even a quarter to do testing, right? And do side by side, run your current system, what you have right now, next to SimplyComp. So, you know, testing, and you make sure that there's no errors coming in, the data is looking good. So that's something also to keep in mind. So if you do want to have something up and running, ready to go for Q1 for January, I would recommend having a couple months of testing on the site.
Yep.
So
Okay.
something to keep in mind.
Just general user adoption, same for the sales reps, to get them familiar logging in. This is where they go to look for this type of information. Just that sort of thing is what we've seen. So,
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Are there any other questions from your side, Bill?
No, I think we're good for now. Obviously, got some internal conversations to have, and I guess I'd get back with you, Spencer.
Yeah. So, guys, I recorded this demo. Would you like me to send it over in case you want to have some of it on hand for your boss, or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay. So I will send that over. Ian, what do you think makes sense for us to get back on a call and just see what we're thinking on MPL side?
Probably middle of next week.
Middle of next week. All right, great. I will shoot you a calendar invite just as a little placeholder, and we'll get on the phone then. Otherwise, thank you both for your time, and Alex, thank you so much for walking us through that.
Yeah, thank you, Ian and Sean, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.